pleasure. Thanks for dropping by. Point number one, it has been suggested that my music at the beginning is too loud, so I'll quieten that down. I did sort of think it was. The problem is obviously that's straight music, so it's at its full volume level, and then there are times like this when I'm chatting to the camera and I'm probably at least a metre away, probably a bit more, and obviously the volume will be a bit lower as a consequence. So we will do a balancing act so that it all comes out at roughly the same level, so that everybody's not reaching for their volume control. Too loud. That's a bit quiet. You know, all that sort of stuff. So point taken. I'll try and deal with that in future. You're getting everything at once today. So the Sunday morning chat is on Monday, the Everything in Bloom on 8th is on the 9th, and an update on me and things that went on over the weekend, which is the Sunday morning chat bit. So I'll do that bit first. The plants to be dumped are now gone, and I had a bit of a hobbit moment because my daughter and I sorted everything out yesterday and put the ones that are just going to be thrown away in on the dining room table. I filmed that, I'll add the clip in a bit later. And this morning I got my repotting tray out in the kitchen and ceremoniously took each plant in turn and took it out of its pot, got all the media off, and I had a big plastic bag hooked up on the side to dump the plants in. And then I can take the bag out and empty it into the compost bin that they come and collect for me. But as I was doing it, I had that hobbit moment at parting of the ring to give, when Bilbo gave the ring to Frodo. Yeah, it's going to be easy, yeah, it's fine. Now it comes to it, not so much. So as I was picking up each plant and taking it out, I was sort of going, actually that one's not got bad roots. Oh no, it's got to go. And my daughter reminded me one of the reasons it was being done was for me. My health and well-being is more important than the individual plants. The total plants is the hobby, the individual plants not so much. Yeah, so I had to get on with it. So that's done, they are gone. There was some mind changing went on, like some of the plants that were down to go to other people got dumped. Hannah's picking them up. What we did to water everything was Hannah got everything off the shelves so that I could just stand upright and do the watering and the looking and the talking and stuff. So we went over the lot. It took a while, but we were in no hurry. And you know, some of the ones she picked up, I said, oh, that's to go to somebody else. And she sort of looked at it and said, are you sure? It's not very good, is it? Dump. So some went that way, and a couple had a reprieve and actually got kept. One was kept for Hannah's idea again, because it would make a reasonable video. So one in particular that I was determined to throw away has been kept back for that reason, because I'll get a video out of it sometime this week, not now. So we sorted. I watered all the mounts yesterday, and we watered all the non-holy clay pots that needed it. Some didn't. It's funny actually, the ones that were still wet and are just staying wet were the ones in the main that got dumped. Yeah, they're rescues, they're not using their water, they're not growing, they're not doing well. When you add the time in and the work and the effort that's been put into that number of plants to try and rescue them, some cases it was working slowly but surely, in other cases they were static. And like Hannah said, you're getting down on those shelves, all the bending, all that sort of stuff. That workload will increase as we get into spring. And for what result? You know, like she had one in her hand. She said, how long have you been trying to get that to grow? I said, a couple of years. How many bending down and picking up and bending down and putting back have you done for that? Bin. The decision became quite easy as we went along. So that's that. Job done. The ones to go to other people, I've still got to look after. And this was one of the other things, you know, it's all very well saying they're to go to other people. So I've got 3 months of looking after them to do before we can get to the point where I can post them. But there are some to go to Orchid Society members, as I've said, where there's no posting and wrapping up and all that sort of stuff. The more I can get into that category, the happier I will be. I'm working on it. So that was that. Our Christmas do was at a new venue, and I must admit personally I had some reservations, and as it turned out none of them were fulfilled. It ended up being a great venue. It worked, and I'm sure we'll be back there next year. It was up on the second floor, so the top floor of the RNLI training college, overlooking Poole Harbour, panoramic view of Poole Harbour, right back to the nature reserve area, all the boats, yeah, so panoramic view. Literally the restaurant was curved like that, so glass right round like that, absolutely fabulous. I still say we were a little squashed in, but bearing in mind at a Christmas dinner, you do spend most of your time on your backside, don't you? So how much space there is doesn't matter that much once you're sat down, you know. So that went okay. Reasonable meal. I wouldn't say it was the highest quality, but trying to get 50 meals out on the table together, you know, so that some people aren't still on their starter and the others have finished their pudding. That went okay. Yeah. So it was a good do, good company. Quite a few laughs and a bit of mucking about, even from the chairman. He didn't muck about very often. So light-hearted. It was good stuff, and like I say, good company. So the weekend went well. Took my daughter back yesterday evening. That was the only iffy bit. It was pouring with rain and blowing a gale, and the chiropractor has said try not to sit still for any length of time. If you've got to do a long drive, stop and get out and walk about. Yeah, well, in the wind and the rain that didn't happen. So, but nonetheless, the mobility is coming back slowly but surely. I'm now able to get into chairs without virtually no discomfort. Getting out is still to be done carefully and slowly. You know, if I'm getting better and more mobile, the last thing I want to do is something stupid and mess it up. And one of those things that would have been stupid was trying to get all those pots off those shelves to water them. So the help was greatly appreciated. The job is now done, and at this time of year, hopefully by the time it needs doing again, it won't be a problem for me. Right, so that's enough waffle. Let's get on to the other bit, which is everything in bloom on the 8th, on the 9th. I'll have to get the camera down. Right, everything in bloom on the 8th. I'm not going to do pop-ups this time with the names because the editing means sitting in that chair. And I don't like doing it in bits. I like to do the video in one go, so I'm not going to do the names pop-ups. I think virtually everything in bloom this time I actually know what it's called. So if you want to know what it's called, listen very carefully. I shall say this only once. Right, so we're starting off with this store-bought Phalaenopsis. One of two. The other one decided to mess me about, so it lost its blooms unceremoniously in the previous video, and the reasons why for me were quite important, and I'll go over it again. The store-bought Phalaenopsis, in the main, you know, whether you're getting them in supermarkets, you know, garden centres, that sort of thing, they have had a traumatic experience. They're not at their best as a plant, health-wise. They've come from the perfect conditions with all the various trade type secrets that are fed to them or given to them, because some of it's not feed, along the hormones and growth restrictors and all the sorts of tricks of the trade, in those perfect conditions, from when they came out the flask till when they get put in the truck to come to us. First place they've got to go to are the trade auction houses, which means they've got to be unpacked off the truck, wheeled around, bought, and then in their trolleys loaded up on different trucks and then taken to places. And some of the larger supermarkets probably have a holding area. So they're transported from the auctions to the central holding area, and then they get loaded up again and distributed to the various places where we go and buy them. They've had a lot of mucking about in their time, you know, so you can understand why some of them just don't do so well for a bit, because they've just had quite a culture shock, and the environmental changes that have gone on, especially depending on the time of year, could be quite dramatic for them. So you can understand why some of them decide, I'm dropping my leaves, or I'm going to take my blooms out early or whatever. But this particular one, I've decided to leave the blooms on, at least till they show signs of fading, but I won't be allowing them to branch. If they try, they're coming off at the first available point. And let the plant settle down into its new environment, get used to it and all that sort of stuff. So that's that one. And then coming out here, I don't know which way round we went last time, but I'm going to start up here, blow it. First one we've got here is the Tahitian Dancer, which is not fully open yet, but it's doing its best. It's getting there. And these are very attractive blooms. I'm lucky today, we've got pretty good light, so I'll probably be able to get in a little bit closer than I would normally. Beautiful blooms. It's around 50% Soto Annum, and today the fragrance has started. This is the first time I've noticed it. Today there is a fragrance in here, and it can only be that, or it could be the Twinkle. Now this is the Twinkle Red Fantasy. It's about half open at the moment. It seems to be going from left to right. It started over in that corner and it's working its way round gradually to get over to this side. In amongst here I can see half a dozen buds or so, maybe a few more, that have actually blasted. I don't know why, and with that number of blooms, quite honestly I don't care. You can see the odd yellow bud there. There's a couple up there as well. But that particular variety of Twinkle smells of, I know this is a brand name and I shouldn't say it, but this time of year around the stores in the UK, we get Terry's Chocolate Orange, which is normally in a box, and it's wrapped up to look like an orange. It's round, it's like a ball, and then you sort of give it a whack and it breaks open into loads of little segments that look like segments of oranges, and it's chocolate orange flavoured chocolate. That's what that fragrance is. Spot on. It's as though you've just opened one out of the box. So that's looking good. Coming down here, I'll pick this one up because the vanda's in the way. This is a Twinkle crossed back with Soto Annum, effectively. Siku Marguerite, and it's Chianzi Glory is its clonal name, and that is a pathetic spike. Are you listening? But then this one objected to being repotted, which is unusual for a Twinkle, even though it's a Twinkle cross. Bearing in mind it was crossed back with Soto Annum, which is infinitely vigorous, probably one of the most vigorous Oncidium types. But anyway, it managed a little spike. Lovely delicate blooms, and fragrant, but it's got a lot of competition, and it's losing. That's that one. The Cymbidium's probably looking as good as it's going to be now, and I've just seen a worry. If you look up this spike, these blooms are all in a good state, aren't they? That looks like the trace of a snail or a slug, just on that one bloom. So we may have to come out with a torch this evening and see if we can find the little blighter. It's a peril that you have to put up with if you keep plants outside and then bring them in. And although I've been doing my best to keep my eye on that, I think I might have missed one. But the second spike's open now. I think that, yes, there's one bud left to open. So this is now nearly fully open with both spikes on the go. And quite honestly, I think that's probably the best it's ever looked. It's certainly the largest, plumpest pseudobulb it's ever produced, but it's still only produced one, but it's chucked up two lovely spikes. So, that's the Cymbidium. No name, it's just a, hybrid thing. And then we'll have a look at the Vanda, because I'm going to have to move it. This is the one that my daughter bought for me a long time ago, which I was a little cross about at the time, because she bought me this for all I was doing for her around the time of her surgery and stuff like that. She had no money, She should not have spent that money on me. Nonetheless, this can never go anywhere because of that. That memory has to stay. I think it's just opening its last couple of buds. And this one has a colour changer where the blooms improve with the colour change. If you see when they open, they've got like a taint on them that's slightly autumn colours. But then look what it fades to. To me, it fades to a much better colour. And it's difficult to say whether that is very pale orange or a very deep goldy yellow, but whatever it is, it's smashing. Tight clusters of blooms, that's got Ascocenda in it, it's not pure Vanda. Again, no ID, although it's given back when it was doing the rounds. There was one on the on the circuit that was given the name Orange Delight, which was a cross that was very popular for a while. So it could be that, but there are so many that look like that, I'm not going to commit to it. And those blooms are sparkling in the sunshine. Now, I've never seen that on that Vanda before. And quite honestly, a lot of orchid blooms have got that crystalline look, but you've got to get the light right. I doubt if the camera will even show it. It looks like it's frosted. Now the sun's going to go in, so that's going to mess it up, isn't it? Right, let me just move the Vanda a bit and we can have a look at the Dendrobium. We haven't got many of them out at the moment. This is Dendrobium Alexandrae. This is a Latoria type, and it's my only Latoria type that didn't go downhill in the heat waves. No idea why. It's in a pot, got through last winter okay, despite being cold. It could just be, because within the Latoria types, most of them are lowland, so you're looking at tropical jungle type environment, but some of them do come from higher elevations, so would have a natural resistance to cooler temperatures. Yeah? This might be one of those. I've never looked it up. All I'm interested in is that it put up with it last winter in a pot, didn't lose its roots, and didn't object to the heat wave. And now it's in bloom with two nice spikes. These are only just opening, but the coloration in that lip is just stunning. And it's not just the colours. Look at the shape of the other two petals with all that crinkliness going on. Just gorgeous blooms, and they look good from behind too, with the lovely spots. You get the spots on the back of the petals and sepals, so smashing blooms. I like that one a lot. Right, now I'm going to have to get down. Luckily, I've been told by quite a few people I shouldn't be able to do this, so going down without bending. We are now in the froggy position, as I call it. And I can get up. I've always said it's easy getting down, but apparently at my age, nearly 70, I shouldn't really be able to do this, but I still can, and boy has it been appreciated to be able to get to things down at floor level without bending my back. So this is the other Vanda. This has got cerulean in it. How much I'm not sure. But it's a very complex name. It's got lots of things in it. It's just one of those complex hybrids. It's the first time it's ever had two spikes at the same time, and they are lasting an inordinate amount of time, and that's just the time of year. They're not having to put up with heat. And they've got shorter days, so they're lasting incredibly well. And at the moment, neither of those spikes are showing any sign of going over. That would be a good one to take to an orchid society, just as a, have a look at this type plant. I don't know whether it would judge very well, although the leaves are pretty good on it. But anyway, that is too much of a faff to take anywhere. And then we do the getting up bit. Ouch! That was me knees, not me back. Right, and then coming over here, my Cattleya caerulea. Didn't look good enough to take to the do. You have to bear in mind our Christmas do is around the same week each year, first or second weekend of December. And last year that took the first. And it actually got 36 points and got one of the special certificates. But this year the blooms have staggered themselves. So I've already taken off half a dozen spikes. So if you can imagine when they were there, if they were there at the same time as the ones that were left, it would have been a stunner. But it's decided to stagger its, so it's still got buds to come. And I mean, I've just cut off some more spikes this morning, just leaving the ones that are still okay. Lovely colour, lovely delicate blooms, lovely shape. It's got a lot going for it, and that's as big as it gets next to my hand. And that's quite a mature plant. You know, I've had that one quite a few years. And it puts up somewhere between 5 and 6 new growths each year. So it gradually gets bigger, it's gradually creeping round the mount. It's going to be, it's off the end almost already in that direction. Grows downwards as well, grows upwards. Still got a bit of room around this side, but it's getting there. So it will fill that mount one day. Possibly next year it's going to be off the edge, but it's staying on there until that thing rots, because the majority of its roots are embedded in that wood. Yeah, and what I might do when it does decide to climb off the mount, I might just, because this has got a hell of a curve on it, yeah, that was obviously off quite a small branch, I'll crack it and break it into about 3 or 4 pieces so that it can fold almost flat and just leave the cracks. That will disturb hardly any roots, and then it can just be strapped on a bigger mount as a flat piece of wood, or nearly flat piece of wood. That's the plan. We'll wait and see if it actually happens. Right, now I'm going to have to stretch, but I'm not getting them down. The 2 Cattleyas that are identical, this is Cattleya Angel Heart. One of these plants is to go, but obviously wrong time of year to be posting stuff at the moment. But I split the plant into 2 and potted the back end of it thinking it wasn't going to grow. Well, it did. So there are now 2. The back end has got some pretty manky leaves because it's the oldest part of the plant. This is its latest growth, and that one, yeah, and it did manage to put up a single bloom. But it's got 2 leads now, yeah. Well, they're both going to produce a new growth in the not too distant future. So we'll have 2 reasonably recent growths with 2 new ones. These older canes, or at least the leaves, can come off. So whoever has that can do some surgery if they see fit. That's an up to you thing. But I've got about 3 months of looking after these plants to go. Who knows what's going to happen in that time? They might not even make it. Right, a bit of bending again, just to get down here and have a look at this Coelogene. This is Coelogene Moriana, and it's the variety Magnifica. And I have noticed, or we noticed yesterday, that it's got a slight distortion in the centre. But it's very slight. Nonetheless, that's one of those plants that just, you only got to get a little thing wrong with that, and it just sucks in the pseudobulbs and desiccates. Roots too soggy, they rot. Not enough water, the pseudobulbs shrivel. It's difficult to get that one right. The hibiki is on its last legs now as far as blooming is concerned. You can see, although this is still classed as in bloom, because some of the blooms are still perfect, the majority have either dropped or are on their way out. So we haven't got much longer with blooms on the hibiki. And then we've got to try and get the new growths going and get some more canes ready for next time round. Coming over here, he says looking up at the sky. No. There's another Tolumnia that's bursting. All the buds are just bursting, but they're not open, so they don't count. So there is only one Tolumnia open at the moment, and it's been open before. I know it was in the last video. It may have even been in the one before. So the blooms are hanging in there. But if you look at the main 2 blooms in shot, the one on my little finger and the one to the left and higher up, look at the colours. It's going. The one on my little finger is the colour it should be. It's losing its yellow. And as soon as that happens, it's starting to drop its blooms. So they're going to go soon. And if that attempts to branch, I'm not going to let it because it's not a strong plant. But I thought we'll let it open, we'll let it bloom, but I'm not going to let it branch and maintain that spike any longer. It's got to come off and give the plant a chance. And then down here we've got our little lemon drops, Cattleya little lemon drops, crossed with Cattleya something or other. I've forgotten. I hope it's got a tag on it. I'm not mucking about with pop-ups. Have you got a tag? Yes, you have. And you are Encyclia Vetulina. Vetulina, however you say it. So Cattleya little lemon drops crossed with an Encyclia. These blooms have been out absolutely ages. It's the best spike it's ever had. And each spike on progressive new growth, that's its third time it's bloomed for me since I got it, has got better. There's no sign of the next new growth yet, and so far it's only ever produced one new growth at a time. But relatively, it is still a young plant. Look into the back end of it. You know, the first pseudo bulb on there is tiny. So this has been brought on from a seedling. And quite honestly, looking at the number of bulbs, it's reached blooming size in a reasonable amount of time. But beautiful little blooms. Smashing shape, smashing colour, yeah, and a lovely compact plant. You know, anybody can squeeze that one in. You might not be able to squeeze some of them in. Right, where have we got to now? Right, Dendrobium glomeratum. Now, I can see the light. I mean, my daughter just stared at these for some time because we did get some sun on them yesterday. And she said, they're sparkling. Can we put them up for Christmas decoration? No. But if you look like there, if the camera can catch it, you can see they're sparkling in the sun. Absolutely gorgeous. These have now been open long enough to justify the plant's existence. Remember I said a while ago, I said this is a plant that's always in the way with the very long canes. It's growing two new growths at the top. So it's growing okay now, but if these blooms don't last long, then it's going to go. But I think they've justified their existence now. Two lovely clusters. These are good for cluster type dendrobiums. These are good sized blooms. Yeah, and when they catch the light, they are quite stunning. So that's justified its existence. And as far as everything in bloom, that's it. So not a huge amount, but talking to some of the others at the Christmas do on Saturday, some people have got hardly anything. And literally the number of plants on the competition tables was very small, and I've missed one. Just caught it out the corner of my eye. My Disa is still in bloom. It's not going to be long though. It's already lost two blooms, so that'll be about the last time we see those. And plants aren't looking too good either. Got a lot of dead leaves on there that need trimming off. They're very prone to rotting, Disas, because they have to be kept so wet. So I might have to deal with that with the old scissors in a minute. Yeah, so that's everything in bloom on the 8th, on the 9th, whatever you want to call it. And I'll leave it at that because I already know this is going on a bit. And I've already got some ideas from suggestions for a few videos this week, plus some of my own. It's just a matter of getting on with them. But I thought, as I haven't done much lately, this one being a long one is okay. Well, that's up to you to say, not me, but I'm happy with it. Yeah, so I'll add the clips from yesterday on the end, and what can we have a last look at? Oh, it's got to be these, quite honestly, out of what's in bloom in here, because I haven't seen these for nearly 3 years. Actually, there's a story, I'll add the story. A few years ago, I think it might even be 4 now, it could be 3, I decided that my lowest winter temperature wouldn't be anywhere near as low as it was, as I do now. So my winter resting type dendrobiums went up in the spare bedroom. So there's no heating up there, and they all got put in the windowsill with the brightest light possible. Sounded good, didn't it? Yeah? There's no humidity up there at all. And this one, glomeratum, got put up there with them. It's not a winter rester, is it? And it objected strongly, and when I brought the plants down, I thought it was dead, and then a little bit of green managed to poke out about a month or two later, and I thought, oh well, we'll try and get it going again. And it's taken that long to get this to bloom. So it was hard work. I think it was worth it. Yeah. Right, and I want to show you one other thing that will be, I'll have to class it as part of the Sunday morning chat because it's not everything in bloom, but boy is it a surprise. My daughter spotted it, not me. One of our favourites, or seems to be, is Mr. Hairy, Dendrobium senile. Now, if you look at the two largest canes at the bottom, they're doing exactly what they should be this time of year. They're dropping their leaves. What's that bright bit of green? It's a bud. And looking around yesterday, we found more than one. There's a couple. Oh, there's another one on that bottom cane on the underside, and another one on that cane on the underside. There's 3 buds on those 2 oldest canes, and that doesn't mean that's all there's going to be. And I said earlier in the year, if this is going to bloom, it's going to do it on those largest, maturest canes, because this one's still growing. It's still pushing out new growths. And strictly speaking, this is a dryer in winter. This is not a proper rester. Comes from an area where the rains don't, dry off that much. So we seem to be doing okay, and we will get Dendrobium senile buds at totally the wrong time of year. You're supposed to put those buds out at about February time, not December. But this one's never seemed to have obeyed the rules or done what it's supposed to do, which just goes to show what you read is often a load of cobblers, isn't it? But it's renowned to be a strange year for dendrobiums this year. Many people's nobilies are in bloom now, when they're normally in bloom end of January into February, so they're quite early. What they're going to be like when we get to the end of January and February, I don't know. They might have a second flush, but it's been a funny old year on the dendrobium front. Things have behaved strangely. Many people have noticed it. Okay, I'll add the 2 clips on from yesterday, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Well, that's part of the job done. All these are going out. They're going in the bin. So there's quite an assortment there. There's 1 or 2 that weren't on the list to go that we decided as we watered them that they were going to go anyway because they weren't worth keeping, and a couple that were to go have ended up saving their bacon by one reason or another. One of them had a spike on, so yeah. So that's, I think, 25 plants now that I'll never see again and won't have to pick up and water. And more importantly, hold on, I'll be back. We have an empty bottom shelf, we have an empty bottom shelf, and we have a bottom shelf with just 2 plants on that don't get watered very often. And we have 2 empty lower shelves down here. So we're now nearly up to waist height with just a few odd exceptions. And I am over the moon that that's been done. And there's still a lot more plants to go, but they're reasonable plants, so they're to go to other people. So they'll have to wait for a while. Good job.